So this is going to be interesting because this is the first time I've done a presentation since COVID. So being that we are about 30 people in a room slated for 215, everybody's 6 foot apart and wearing masks, I'm going to stay back here and take my mask off. Our photographers would agree not to take pictures of me without a mask on, because my husband, last thing he said was double mask. No, and truthfully, the reason for that is what I do, wedding ghosts. I ghostwrite for wedding professionals all over the country. So I take their content, whether it's real weddings, wedding tips about their staff, and I curate it into blog posts for their site for SEO. The ghost part is that I don't talk about it. I'm behind the scenes, and I'm an invisible part of their team. So curating images, I show images of great weddings recently where people had masks on, or things with no people in, to help them grow what they're doing. Now, how does that tie into today? I am one of, what do we have this time? 47? 47 master wedding planners in the world. Tammy is also one. And I own my own wedding planning company in Philadelphia for over a decade. And we appeared regularly on Google page 1. I spoke on every news station and most of the magazines in Philly for over a decade, and it all had to do with branding. Now, I've had to unbrand myself because I'm invisible. I've gone from being the guy in the red shirt that everybody knew in the greater Philly market to wearing gray and doing boring logos and stuff on my presentations, because my job is to promote my clients as the experts. I'm invisible. So let's talk about branding. What's branding? Anybody? Yell something out.
Identity.
Identity, recognizability. Great. So technically, it's listed as a name, design, or other feature that distinguishes a seller's products from those of another. So it's everything that plays into what makes your business recognizable. What's the world's most recognizable brand? Apple. But if you look at things, that's only a logo. It's only a logo, but it still makes a very recognizable brand. Ages ago, when I first saw that, I thought it had to do with the teachers union, with the apples, and they have one that's similar to that, but that was long before everybody started carrying around MacBook Pros and iPhones and everything else. So let's take a look at these. Is there anybody here that does not recognize any of those logos? What are the features that really stand out to you that are specific to that group? Simple?
Color.
Color. Recognizable by color. They are all very consistent. So there are things that we're going to touch on today. So the first part of life, anybody know what that is?
Glasses.
Those are designer glasses. I don't have any cake artists in the room, do I?
That's Sylvia Weinstein.
Anybody know who she is?
Sylvia Weinstein.
Sylvia Weinstein is the premier cake designer in New York City, probably most of the world, does some of the most expensive cakes I've ever seen. Those glasses rarely leave her face. When you get a cake from her, there is a tiny little pair of black glasses tucked into the back of your cake. She is one of the most recognizable luxury wedding brands in this country, if not in the world. But it's that simple. It's black, it's a simple design, it doesn't have to have her name on it. People recognize that it's Sylvia Weinstein. So we're going to start with, first part is deciding what you want to be. Now the most common mistake that people make is not completely understanding what it is that they are. Like wedding planners will consistently tell you that we plan fabulous weddings for people. We're not necessarily. We're a resource, we're a confidant, we keep people on track. They're all the things that we do for people, but you have to decide what it is that you want to be, what it is you want to be known for. So, do you want to be this, or do you want to be this? What's the difference?
Money.
They're both car logos.
Both money. A lot of money.
Money. Okay? And that's recognizable to people. So let's take the name. Porsche versus Chevrolet. Chevy has become very common with the everyday person. It's a good, dependable car. It's American made. When you say Porsche, people anticipate that you're luxury. So when you're looking to brand your business, you have to decide what you want to be. Who is your ideal client, and how do you get that point across to them? So the first part is, what is it that we sell? If we're selling photography, I think I'm not photographers. Are we wedding photographers? Are we doing a wide range of photography? One of the most frustrating things to couples planning a wedding is to go to a photographer's website and have to dig through sports photos, corporate headshots, baby, whatever it is. So building an identity that focuses on one thing, if you do multiple things, then you may want to consider different names, different landing pages. Just because your ideal clientele, and I will say this because I've been around in the industry for a long time, probably 20 in wedding planning and 20 in food and beverage before that. My clients are not getting any older. I am. If I am marketing like I did in the 80s and 90s, I no longer have a business. So you need to focus on what it is that you sell and your client understanding it. Who is your target customer? Are they a rustic couple? Are they boho? Are they a luxury client? If your wedding name, your company name is two grooms, you better be sure that a large portion of your business is male same-sex couples. So really identify what it is that you do, who you connect with, and will your business really, your identity, build around that? Are you addressing your target market in your media? We're going to talk a little bit about that. And one of my favorite things in the world is inward reality versus outward perception. Good friend of mine who's a videographer in Philly said this ages ago, and I live by it. I can tell you till I'm blue in the face who I am, what I do. If I go to my online reviews and my client is saying something completely different, then I am something completely different. So the first exercise for everybody, when you get back home and you have free time, go and look at a nice sampling of your online reviews. That will determine what your brand is, whether you like it or not. If they say you are super cheap, you may want to look at your package price. If they say that it takes you forever to return calls, you may want to work on a system so that you are getting back to people more quickly. If they say that you are responsive, attentive, have great ideas, have great resources, then focus on those. Focus on those as part of your identity. It's a great starting point. So that outward perception is way more important than what your inward reality is. I am not picking on anybody in the room. I don't know a majority of you, especially not with masks on. So we're going to focus on business name, a logo, your collateral material, and your personal professional image. They're the big parts that make up your brand. So I'm going to talk about these three ladies. They are all actually dear friends of mine. None of them are still currently in the industry trading under these names. When I started my wedding planning company in 2000, these were the heavy hitters in the Philadelphia market. They were doing all of the big luxury weddings. I was a guy. I'm openly gay. People assumed that I did not know a whole lot about weddings, even though I had done a lifetime in food and beverage and doing it on the catering side. But I worked really hard to come up with a business name. Exercise number 2, if you're thinking about rebranding, or you're really new and you don't have a brand identity, put a piece of paper on your refrigerator or someplace else that you're going to look at it all the time, and start to list pieces that you think make up your identity, what it is that you want to convey. So I was fairy tale weddings, royal weddings. People were talking about all of the royal weddings. I wanted it to be elegant. I wanted it to be stress-free. I wanted it to stand out. I'm a gay man. So I wanted to do something really different. I listed these, and I literally looked at them every day for about a month before we registered the name. And one night I woke up and had seen a logo. I literally called a friend of mine who was a graphic designer and said, you need to find this for me. This is the logo for my new business. We'll get to that. The challenge here is great planners, really sweet, in the early days of wedding websites. Any of those names memorable? The problem is, if you meet with Melissa and Melissa, their names start to sound the same, their businesses don't really differ a whole lot, they work a lot in the same places, they work with a lot of the same vendors. So it wasn't memorable. Megan, the same way, but it kind of fit in. Now, fast forward a decade, when they went to close their businesses, they essentially closed their businesses and moved on because it's hard to sell a business with more name on it to somebody else. High 5 figures for a website and a company name. No inventory, no anything else, didn't have a product that I sold. It was reputation and the company name, page 1 of Google. So make yourself memorable. That's the big thing. Take a look at it. If you sound like everybody else in your market, if you have a business name and people are like, what is that? What do they do? That may be why you're not getting the calls back. So definitely jump in and look at that. Second thing, logos. These are all clip art, but I've seen them on everybody's website. They're black and white, they're very simple. There's nothing about them that tells me anything about what that company's business does, except for that they're involved in weddings somehow. And they had those. Anybody else been around long enough that you've opened up somebody's website and you saw the little beating hearts that moved across the screen, or when you moved your cursor? Like they don't cut it. If you do not know a local graphic designer, or nobody in your pool of people knows a graphic designer, Fiverr, Fiverr.com. You can have people bid on them. Don't be afraid to say to them, I don't like it, tweak this, do that. They all do reviews. I paid $25 to have somebody design a logo for a food and travel blog that I do as a hobby. Like, literally, you can have somebody who will build you a good logo. Now, that was my logo. My business was called the Queen of Hearts Wedding Consultants. Queen. Bright red when everybody else was doing white or pastel websites. And it stood out. Use your name and your logo on everything. And we did. That was the top of our website. 2-sided business cards. Now, where's my florist? This gentleman from Sarasota, Florida, handed me his business card, is using the second side. If you have a blank second side, about the only thing that it's really good for is that somebody can take a pen and write something on it that probably should have been on there already. So a second side works well. If you are established and happy with your business name, your logo, the coloring and stuff that you do, go for a little more expensive card. And I'm not saying go for the big heavy ones that, I've got a couple of photographer friends that are the big heavy metal through the middle, laminated, the ones that they give to their heavy hitter clients. You don't need those. Those, Vistaprint, I raised the Queen of Hearts logo on the back side, and I never, ever, ever handed anybody the business card anyway, except for with the Queen of Hearts up. My staff the same way. I don't need them to know that I'm Mark. I don't ever want them to forget that we are the Queen of Hearts wedding consultants. And we used it on everything. We did postcards that we used and we gave out to venues. Letterhead at the time. We did a lot that was snail mail for a good portion of our business for a reason. So, use it on everything. Find a logo that works for you, that really sells your company. Don't be afraid to use color. Branding with color. Anybody not know what's in that box? Anybody not know how much they spent on what's in that box? Tiffany blue is iconic. If you see a box in that ribbon, you know that somebody cares for you a lot, or they screwed up big time. Only 2 reasons that you get one of those. All right? So don't be afraid to brand in color. Be consistent. I'll pick on Tammy because I've known her forever. Tammy brands everything that she has with purple. To the point where I got her a necklace on vacation and the only option was purple. So, like, don't be afraid to use color and be consistent with it. Use it on everything, be consistent. That was our website. Literally, everybody in our market was doing white websites. When I came out with an all red wedding website that not only had big color, but if you look at this header, blended Asian wedding, black couple, Joe Flacco's wedding, a Jewish wedding, and another black couple. Like, people were pigeonholed into what they did, and we wanted to be very clear on a couple things with our business. We don't do boring. We work with everybody, and our weddings reflect that. I've had fire eaters at a wedding. I did living statues that stood behind my couple, and when they kissed, they moved and covered their face. He was a rock and roll music producer. Like, they were out of the box. So you want to make sure that your website, your collateral material, the weddings that you feature, we all do weddings where the couples are really sweet, didn't get great images, not great details. So you write a story, you use pictures of the couple, and hopefully you use some kind of a quote, and you don't fill that page with all of the pictures that might be, quote, off-brand. The other thing is, hopefully, as your business grows, so does the dollar value of your clients, so do the visuals. Update your website. It's okay to make some of that stuff go away. Now, don't delete them off of your website. That is the quickest way to lose SEO value, because any links that you built to that page now have gone away, but you can make them invisible on the back end of your website. Make it disappear, it still lives there. The people that bought Queen of Hearts have gotten rid of a lot of the old blogging content, but if I search it based on the web address .com/blog and the couple's name, I can still find it living on the internet. So don't be afraid to stand out. So reinforcing your brand. Send something via snail mail. Who gets anything other than junk mail or bills? Anybody? You get thank you cards. Okay. But by and large, we are so accustomed to getting nothing but junk mail and bills that if you send a prospective client, a wedding pro that you worked with, a thank you note on a note card that has your logo with a colored envelope, like, people are really excited and you really stand out. So envelopes.com, I used to buy big, bright red, Valentine's red envelopes. product personality. I want to know that as a photographer, I click with you, that we can have a conversation, that you get what I do. I want to see your product. If the product is too high, one of the things I learned as a wedding planner a long time ago is couples want a cheaper price for everything, but they're not willing to give anything up. So as a wedding planner, my clients were taught from the get-go, if you love that photographer and that is not a good price for you, either we come up with more money in the budget, or you tell me which of those 5 or 6 things you're willing to give up. You don't need the thank you cards, we can talk about that. So, the tips, establish you as an expert. I stood on stage at a dozen wedding shows a year and talked about the same basic wedding planning tips at almost every show, and took questions from the floor that were almost always the same kind of questions. Did it stop any of them from hiring me? Did they be like, yeah, talking about? Like literally, it was take the top of your wedding cake, cut it into 12, freeze each one individually, pull it out on the first month anniversary, second month, third month, fourth month. By the time you get to 12, you're tired of it already, but you enjoyed it for the whole year versus pulling it out and having to freezer burn. Blown away. But you gotta share what you know for people to know that you actually know what you're doing in the industry, that your brand is higher than everybody else's, that you know what you're doing. Next part. We talked about blow your own horn with media, it's really huge. Second part is to develop a media list. If you go to the website for Philadelphia Weddings, they have a masthead. It tells me who every editor is, every freelance writer, and an email address. The news station's the same way. I can write a digital press release, go into my database and go blind copy, blind copy, blind copy, because CCing really pisses people off. And send the same thing to all of them. Fox Good Day had me on their morning show 12 times during engagement season. Like literally one email and showing up that I knew what I was talking about. So don't be afraid to tackle the media. Social media is great. 20-something couples live and die by Pinterest and Instagram and a lot of the other social media outlets that are starting to be used by wedding pros and getting in front of thousands and thousands of people. So don't be afraid, once you've got a brand established and people start to know who you are, to step out of your comfort zone and talk to the press and get bigger exposure.